You're listening to The Talent Sync. The Talent Sync is a talent board and job sync collaborative podcast production about anything and everything recruiting and hiring. Literally the kitchen sink on how all things in talent acquisition work together, should work together, and how sometimes they don't. Now it's time to sync up with your hosts, Kevin Grossman and Leah Daniels. Today's topic is the power of preboarding new hires. Enjoy the podcast. Hello, my friend Leah. How are you doing today?
Kevin, it's great to be here with you.
You know,
I'm good.
I'm glad. No, we've been doing this. Is this our sixth show? I think it's our sixth that we're doing.
We made it past the magic 3 number, which I'm really excited about.
We did, and we're having fun doing it too, right? So it's not like this. It's not a chore, and because we're both really busy. But this is fun. It's fun to talk shop with you and letting everybody kind of hear our fun thoughts. But it has been fun. So that's why we've gone past number 3, as you say. So that's good.
I have spent the week, I got to tell you, Kevin, on soapboxes. I am the soapbox queen this week, so this could be interesting for us. I have a number of them.
So give me one example, one soapbox example from this week.
My big soapbox this week has been that our economy, our hiring economy, is a tale of 2 different economies.
It's very much so, and probably even multiple personality economies, actually.
Oh, definitely. And probably actually like 50 economies. We've got our hiring, our white collar workforce hiring, and then we have our hourly workforce, our blue collar hiring. And those economies are so different. And so you see these crazy numbers. I saw this fascinating statistic, right? That job postings on Indeed are down 3%. Job sponsorship is down 30%. But postings are only down 3%, Kevin. So companies are still hiring.
Yeah, but Indeed is now down 2,200 people too. So
they are.
I say that only because I know this is still happening and there's still right sizing down, so whatever you want to call it, happening. But along those same lines of what you're talking about with the 2 different economies, I mean, at our virtual conference that we just did, Jay Denton, who's the labor economist, works for the startup called Labor IQ. I really like his take on everything that's going on. And he was clear in his presentation with us that, listen, it is this mixed bag, but overall right now we're still at historically low layoffs. Still, that could change this year, right? But it's still there. So anyway, keep going.
So why are they low? This is actually a really good comment, right? It's low because the percentage of the workforce or the part of the workforce that's being impacted is that upper echelon, that 30%. It's a lot of white collar workers. Now, that doesn't mean, to your point, it's not going to filter down. And it doesn't mean that we're not going to see some interesting things happen as we start to see inflation start to cool a little, and we see people's buying powers get pulled back. The housing market is starting to cool. Like, all of these economic factors are happening, and that could have a knock on to the blue collar workforce. But the reality is that blue collar workforce, our hourly workforce, we still have more demand than we have humans. And that means we are going to continue to see something really interesting happen in that space. One is we're going to keep seeing companies be desperate. They're going to pay transparency plus desperation means higher wages in the hourly workforce. It means more churn, which, and I know you're going to like this, leads us to today's topic. Because when you have churn, you have to hire more people. How do you keep them longer than your standard workforce? How do you keep people engaged? How do you get them to show up on day one? How do you pre-board properly?
As we jump into that, there's still one of the other things too that was shared at our event is in the same labor economist presentation. There's still 2 million plus people, a good majority of them, frontline hourly workers, that have never come back to work. Whatever they're doing, they have never come back to work. And we have this conversation now that we're segueing into the topic, everybody. And yes, preboarding, onboarding, because it's definitely top of mind. Every conversation that we've had in our candy community, as we call it, in the past 2 years in particular, that topic comes up, is that and especially with the fact that on the hourly side, although this happens on the professional hiring side too, they are losing people before they even start on day one.
Yes. and then you're losing them within the first, month, 2 months, 3 months, right? So you have this failure to launch, which I think has historically been calculated after day one, right? Like when you have someone come in on day one, but they don't make it to day 90. And what we're seeing now is not only not making it to day one, they're not even calling you to tell you they're not coming. So you're getting ghosted before day one, right? Which is, I think, maybe a slightly newer concept in the market.
Did you see, by the way, that Matthew McConaughey movie, Failure to Launch, was that with Kate Hudson? Do you know which one I'm talking about?
It is, but it wasn't with Kate Hudson. It was with...
Who was that with? It has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but when you said Failure to Launch...
It has the Sex and the City girl. What's her name?
Sarah Jessica Parker?
Thank you. Sarah Jessica Parker.
That's what came to mind. Sorry, folks. It has nothing to do with what we're talking about at all. But this is how my mind works sometimes, especially at the end of a long week of busy. So anyway, I have a conundrum, though, Leah. And I think I have some ideas about it, but I wanted to run this by you. So the past 4 years, at the end of the year, we have been asking our Candy community at Talent Board in a separate kind of small research project what their top priorities for the coming year are. What are your top talent acquisition priorities, recruiting, hiring priorities? How are you going to get them done? And a few other questions. And last year, for the first time, at the end of 2022, onboarding became the number one priority. This is what they told us in the data that we captured. Became the number one priority at the end of the year. But then we started doing these monthly pulse surveys that we're doing now. It's just 10 questions, similar data, but we were trying to see an ongoing pattern. And what is fascinating is that already in those 2 months, and we're now capturing for March as we're recording this now, the onboarding dropped. Now, the mix of companies change. It's not the same because it's all anonymous responses and research. So that I know that changes. But while the percentage who say that they're still hiring has remained the same, over 80%, onboarding dropped. It's still in like a quarter of them, 25% said it's still really important to us. This last one we did in February. But why do you think that has fluctuated like that?
I have zero data behind what I'm about to say.
Just say it. It's
so
all good.
Many feelings, none of the data.
Get on that soapbox right now and tell me what I have in my own ideas, but I want to hear from you.
So I have a parallel that's going to bring us back here. So one of the things that I have heard creep into the vernacular recently, again, is, there's lots of candidates out in the market. Why are we working so hard to attract talent? Why are we making it too easy for candidates? We need to add more roadblocks. We need to make it harder. We want to make them want to work here. All of that legacy bad behavior we've heard in the past around candidate attraction and conversion is creeping back into the vernacular right now. And I think that is a result of the headlines leading people to believe that the shoe is on the other foot, that it's not a candidate anymore, it's back to being an employer market. And I think when employers think it's an employer market, they stop doing some of these candidate forward behaviors because they think you want it, you'll work for it, you'll still show up. And I think that's really deceptive because back to that two markets, I'm not even convinced in our upper echelon market, our white collar market, that the layoffs that we're seeing are that impactful yet, right? Because to your point, they're not really registering as that high on the volume side. It's headlines, splashy headlines, but it's actually not that many people. And a lot of the positions are positions that other companies are fighting to hire. So these people are getting scooped up pretty quickly, right? We don't see a huge uptick on the unemployment market, which is like the big piece that's missing in this conversation is that unemployment isn't really creeping up that much. So those folks are coming onto the market and getting picked up pretty quickly, which tells me that while we might think it's an employer market, it's not. It's still a candidate market, but yet our behaviors are shifting. So that's my thoughts, feelings, no data.
Time for a Talent Sync break.
Hey everybody, Kevin Grossman here, president of Talent Board and the Candidate Experience Awards. Our 2023 Candidate Experience Benchmark Research Program will open in January and run through August 31st. To learn more on how your organization can participate, go to thetalentboard.org.
Break time's over. Now back to the Talent Sync.
But you know what? Well, I know, and I agree with you on that. There's definitely a disconnect there. I mean, housing and construction is down right now as an industry.
Which is a leading one typically when bad things are about to happen.
Right. But retail, hospitality, and other related hourly industries are strong right now. There's a very strong and are struggling again to fill the positions that they have. So I agree with you. I totally think that you're right on that take. I also think part of the reason why the importance of onboarding and even pre-boarding, which I think we should probably, I mean, the way that I'm sure we both look at it, and probably most of the people in the space do, pre-boarding has kind of come out of a subset of onboarding of how do we keep folks engaged and nurtured before they start on day one. Onboarding is literally the process of getting them on board, but pre-boarding is that phase between offer acceptance, verbal and or written, to starting on day one. But what I keep hearing too is that, remember, a lot of organizations, with the exception of some progressive ones that I'm aware of in our Candy community, like New York Presbyterian and some others that are partnering more with HR and talent management, because otherwise that process is, we got them to the door, we got them to say yes, here you go, and then talent acquisition doesn't have a purview anymore at that point, right? Because it's the hiring managers to kick in, the HR kicks in. So I think that when they don't have any purview into that anymore at that point, and they're just punting over the fence, over the transom, I think that's why it kind of goes back and forth. But the companies, I would argue, that are going to win, both professional and on the hourly side, are partnering more, and TA is part of that retention equation as it relates to pre-boarding and onboarding. An example, Southwest Airlines, we just did a workshop there on site. They've always done, the past 3 years, besides, some of the struggles that they had, last winter and Christmas time, but they really have done a lot of work to redeploy, to retain their folks. They're in a highly competitive industry, and a lot of the ground crews and maintenance, it's a struggle to keep them hired. But they put together, now they have a pre-employment team. This kind of actually blossomed out of their recruitment marketing team that is now I call it a pre-boarding team, but it's almost the same thing, to help engage and nurture individuals to get them across the finish line. And those companies that are doing that, I just think are going to have more, or at least initial retention success, I think. What do you think?
I want to break down a couple of things that you just said there. So the first is, it gets thrown over the transom to the hiring manager. And I cannot agree with you more. And it doesn't matter what company, industry, space we're in, that is the sort of the swing. And I think that the problem is right there. In the hiring manager, you've got a couple of issues. One, the hiring manager is down a person, right? So they're waiting for this person to come. So do they have the space, capacity, time to properly nurture this person along for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks? And the answer is oftentimes no, they don't. Second, what can they offer this person other than work? And that is problem too, right? I have seen this so many times. Their thought is, well, you know what? I'm going to give them a bunch of stuff that I can have them read and get educated on, literally asking them to do free work for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, right? So we have this really kind of funny thing where the hiring managers, and I'm not blaming them in any way, they just don't know what else to do that you could possibly do to engage this team, other than maybe send them a note and say, excited to see you coming, and then ignore them for 2 more weeks. So there's no process, there's no sort of thought for a lot of companies around, what would we have the hiring manager do? Should they text them and introduce them to the team? Should they bring them to lunch? I mean, if it's virtual, what do you do then, right? There's so many questions. And by the way, that person who you're bringing on may still be working at their old job. So there's this kind of dynamic where, you don't necessarily want to impose upon them. Now, I have seen companies do this, and I think it was Ernst & Young I saw the other day. I know someone who went over there, and they sent her a giant swag bag of cool sweatshirt and mug and backpacking, all the gear, and got her started. And she was super excited about that. She posted it on social, and everybody was excited for her. But a lot of companies don't have that in their wheelhouse, or don't have that as something that as a line item they can afford, right? So there is this sort of, what do you do? What do you do for engagement on pre-boarding, and who does it? So I don't know, Kevin, those are the two questions for me. What do you do, and who is responsible?
I agree with that. And I think that this is why I'm seeing at least in with larger teams, mid-size to enterprise kind of size companies that have bigger TA teams, even if they've been downsizing now, which unfortunately we see that happening on the tech side now. A lot of recruiters are getting shedded, which is what happens, unfortunately. But besides that, here's a stat from our data: less than 40% of new hire candidates before they start are contacted by their hiring manager. According to the candidates telling us in our data, less than 40% get a call before they start. So already, right there, we know in our data, those who did get a call or a text even, because texting is more pervasive now too, for candidates and new hires for that matter. When they do get contacted from their hiring manager, their willingness to increase their relationship with the employer, again, which just means think of it as a retention starter out of the gate, increases dramatically when just getting that call. So that's through the hiring manager side. But there's also, we find, when they're not just getting them to complete paperwork or, start studying this stuff, which is more about the work, just introducing them to team members, even if it's from a virtual perspective. These are the people you're going to be working with. You can start connecting with them now, getting any of their questions answered as well, communicating just goals and responsibilities. I'm not asking you to do any work, but this is stuff that, prepping them for their first, 2, 3, 4+ weeks, right? When those things are done, on that kind of engagement and not asking them to do work, but just getting them immersed in the organization and again, across industry, across size, that is another kind of solidifier of like, this is a place I'm glad that I'm going to be here. I'm glad I'm going to be working here even before they start. And yet only in our data, only 21% of the highest rated companies in our data and account experience ratings are doing this regularly, at least. So that, to me, that's a huge missed opportunity. And that's more TA doing that and hiring manager, actually, kind of both. But it's a missed opportunity. And I'm not asking you to do the work, but I am getting you into us.
I almost think, though, if companies want it to happen, TA is going to have to force it to happen. Even if they're not the ones making the phone call, making the introductions, they're going to have to do the part where they say, hiring manager, you need to carve out an hour to go do the following thing.
I think they should own it. Now, it's going to be different when you're talking about a smaller organization that maybe has, one HR person and one recruiter, if that. But I still think that they should own it. You have to constantly re-recruit to retain.
If you want them to own it, measure it, right? So do we measure recruiters on their failure to launch or successful launch?
Time for a Talent Sync break.
Hi, Talent Sync listeners. I just wanted to share a bit about JobSync with you all. JobSync helps companies get more quality candidates out of their job board advertising and automates a variety of manual recruitment tasks by solving for the very low conversion rate challenges most companies experience on their career site. JobSync integrates your entire application, including all of your questions, directly into the various job boards' quick apply processes, providing you with fully completed applications directly into your ATS and resulting in 2 to 5 times more candidates while dropping your cost per application by half. This helps return up to 10 hours a week back into your recruiter's time through custom automations that are based on your business-specific recruiting processes. JobSync works with most major ATSs like Workday, SuccessFactors, and Taleo, CRMs, programmatic platforms, and job boards like Indeed and Zip. You can check out jobsync.com to learn more.
Break time's over. Now back to the Talent Sync.
No, some companies do. I mean, for example, Surveil is our survey platform, right? And so, but a lot of their customers are measuring recruiter and hiring manager performance through the lens of candidates. We don't get that granular because ours is bigger picture data, although they tell us in the comments. But there are companies who are getting that information and data. But again, like Southwest and New York Presbyterian has a preboarding team. And I'm hearing there was last year, we did a workshop in Raleigh, North Carolina, and there was a large global call center organization that I'm drawing a blank on their name, but it was part of on a panel that I had put together, and he was talking about a call center. Obviously, there's high churn, but they literally had a pretty big part of their a TA team of, I think, maybe upwards of 8 to 10 people that were all focused on preboarding engagement and they were called Job Angels. That was literally their internal name, which I love. I love that. It's, you know, it's kind of sweet and almost fluffy, but it actually worked for them. And I hope that's still there for them. But he said it worked very well. And so, and TA owned that. That's a lot of hourly hiring too.
So, and I can see where, especially in the hourly space, that works really well. I do think it's just a chasm, right, for a lot of these companies where TA's looking down the chasm going, you, hiring manager's looking down the chasm, look at TA going, you, right? And so I like that they've built a team to bridge it. It's interesting too, Kevin, because I think, you know, we're talking about preboarding, and I would argue that's a pretty advanced concept for a lot of organizations who are still trying to get onboarding right.
No, agreed. You're right. And onboarding meaning just getting the paperwork done. The
paperwork, make sure if you need a computer or access or whatever it might be, it's ready to go when you show up. I mean, how many companies have people arrive on day one and they're really not ready for them to be there on day one, right? They're not prepared. And so it's interesting because I think you're right in that the elite of the elite companies are pre-boarding, but a lot of companies are still onboarding, and even more, more just sort of hope as a strategy to get that candidate to say yes and then show up and then start the work and stick around. But I was saying, you got to measure it. The measurement could be, something that we really do lean into. Like, how do we hold recruiters accountable to a metric on, arrival first day? And I think we do it in an abstract way, in that if they don't show up, your job goes open again, you got to do the work again. And nobody wants to do that. But that is different than saying, like, this is a metric we hold our whole team to, each individual recruiter to, or we look at our hiring managers and we hold our hiring managers to this metric. And that's an interesting one, right? Have you seen that before? Because I don't think I have.
Not as much as, although that's where I would argue where that accountability needs to be more, though, because that's going to be the argument of, I know a lot of TA leaders and especially their teams, recruiters would argue that even those that when their performance is tied to incentives and as it relates to improving the candidate experience of the candidates that they're shepherding through the process and including the new hires, their argument is going to be that it's at the point of once somebody accepts an offer, the hiring manager's got to be more responsible in this equation at that point. Because I mean, the recruiter, I've just heard from a recruiter recently that's like, I always make sure that I follow up with everybody until they start. Even if they don't have a formal pre-boarding team as we've been defining it today. But there's a struggle. It's always a struggle, right? Getting hiring managers on board with structured interviews, getting them to adhere to certain things, getting SLAs in place. But who needs to be more accountable, I would argue. It's the people that are actually going to be managing these people at the end of the day. They need to, and TA can still be a part of that, again, the nurturing part. But when our candidates tell us every year that less than 40% of the hiring managers are calling them, I'm like, that's a place where you could start.
Right. Call them, text them, send them an email. But I think it's also that these hiring managers don't know what to say, right? My point before, like, we don't want to ask them to do work, and I don't know what else to say. And so I think the TA could really help in creating sort of the content calendar, per se. Here are the things you could do 2 weeks out, 1 week out, 3 days out, day before they start, right? So it doesn't need to be an everyday event, but it does need to be a multi-touch event. And I think that's the other piece, Kevin, right? This is not a one-time text, a one-time email. I think good pre-boarding needs a multi-touch campaign associated to it. And I think that part's hard.
It is. Because, also, do they have the resources, the time, the team? And strategically, does TA and HR leadership feel the need for that? Are they convinced of the fact that, and has that case been made to them? I think we both agree that it needs to be done, but I wonder if that is something that falls on deaf ears, because they've got to be a part of that equation, because that it's going to be, no matter what happens this year, even if, God forbid, we dig deeper into this recession-ish thing that we're in, and we have been in since the second half of last year, no matter what it looks like, there's still something, but no matter what happens, though, they are going to say, I am not going to put up with this, and I'm gone. whether that's a month after they start, a year after they start. I mean, there's a near and long-term tail here that needs to be addressed, but it's going to happen. I mean, a lot of the economists we had on our event this week and many others that I've spoken with, the feeling is that there will still be, now the exodus may slow if companies do start, putting more and more brakes on hiring, and that starts to hit the skids a little bit more. People are going to be less likely to leave. But right now, that's still there. And I think until some of those things change, and this is where they can, again, the whole point of this episode as we kind of wrap it up, right? It was about what can we do to ensure that there is, because what happens 6 or 12 months later maybe is a whole nother story for that employee, but what happens before and right after?
We could sum it up to a couple of things. One, TA needs to build the case, build the ROI. Why do you need to do this? I would love to see a company that said, this is before preboarding and this is after preboarding, and here is the difference, right? Can you imagine? Because that is where you start. If you can build the case, you can build the ROI, then step 2, build the plan. This is the content calendar. This is the things you can do. Make sure what you're asking of your employees and of your future employees are reasonable. And I think there's a handshake in there, right? I think one of the things that I have not seen a lot of is TA saying, we're really excited you signed the offer letter. We're super excited to have you start in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever it might be. Hiring manager, who is going to stay in communication with you for the next 2 weeks. Please direct any questions you might have to both of us. There's a soft handshake there that could really be helpful. And then I think you said before, but a text message might be the easiest way to do things, right? I think that companies are still reluctantly adopting text messaging, and it's fascinating to me because candidates have not only adopted it, it's part of their life, they don't even think twice about it. And yet here we are as a business still creeping towards text messaging. And I think that that's a really good way to solve for a myriad of these problems that companies have.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. You soapbox the heck out of that thing.
You're welcome. I'm on it today.
I'm telling you, just bam. Well, listen, Leah, as always, it's been a pleasure, and I know you and I could just keep on going, but we're gonna wrap this episode up right now, folks. And we appreciate you listening. And if you got questions, want to reach out to us, you can definitely do that, and we'll make sure to put that on the post when we post these live. And otherwise, thank you, Leah.
Thank you, Kevin. Nice to chat. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for listening to the Talent Sync podcast, a Talent Board and Job Sync collaborative podcast production. More episodes soon.